Hi, I'm Gabrielle Sultan, and today I'm interviewing my mentor teacher for ESL certifications. So, how long have you been teaching, and how long have you taught ELL students?
My name is Sandra Moroz, and I've been teaching 28 years. And I'm sure I've had ESL students of some sort most of those years, but I've only been designated as an ESL certified teacher for the last 12 years.
Okay. What subject do you see that your ELL struggle the most? Because you teach all subjects being a first grade teacher. So, do you see a specific one where they struggle the most in that one area?
The content area where it shows up the most, I think, is a content area such as science or social studies, where they have to apply what they're learning in those subject areas um, and then show it their English understanding of it, especially if I ask them to demonstrate their understanding in writing.
Okay. So, do you think they're able to put it on the paper and then just not explain it, or do you think they also struggle to put their ideas onto the paper too?
They're able to draw what they see. Like if they were learning about magnets, they can draw and label the pictures fairly accurately, but then to explain with the correct content vocabulary, quite often they can't recall the correct words, so they'll say something like, the magnets go together. They
Okay.
just they stick together,
hmm
so they're not remembering words like attract or repel.
hmm So, do you think you recognize how speaking a second language might impact their cognition?
It impacts their ability to express their understanding in English
Okay,
because
like
they
you just
might
explained.
not have the content
hmm
vocabulary readily accessible.
hmm what are some similarities you see between your bilingual and your monolingual students? Like maybe some things that they both struggle with, or some things that they both typically succeed in quicker?
They typically are equally successful in math,
Okay.
um, especially when we're focusing on um, number operations and
Okay.
not as much vocabulary.
hmm
And I forgot the second part of the question. What are they equally successful
And then
in?
what are some differences you see, like that you might, a certain subject or just a certain topic, maybe a certain teak that is
Mm-hmm.
pretty different for what they are understanding?
Anything that involves writing,
Okay.
content area writing, science, social studies,
hmm
or writing in general. If their vocabulary is limited in
hmm
English, it's harder for them to express themselves in the writing.
hmm So, what type of motivations do you notice among most of your ELL students? Is there certain things that you use or think have worked in your classroom?
You mean motivations that are different from what my um,
Or similar, whichever ones
mhm,
you might, if you do see a different one, or if you think there is one that tends to work for all of them as a whole, also.
mhm. Well, as far as class-wide motivations that are different from the PBIS
hmm
motivations, which are to promote appropriate behavior.
hmm
Um, an academic type motivation would be the reading calendars that we have
Okay.
each month to encourage reading at home.
hmm
Um,
Because that makes a big difference when they're getting that reading.
yes, they're being exposed to more vocabulary, they're improving their fluency, they're improving their comprehension. Some of my ESL students don't have someone at home that can
hmm
read and understand the books that they're reading in English, and
hmm
that makes it more challenging because they could read to their parent, but the parent might not understand if they're reading it correctly
Yeah.
and might not be able to ask comprehension questions
hmm
about what they're reading because they don't understand
Yeah, because
the
they aren't
English.
there to have that conversation with them that they need to really help them understand the
Yes.
book. What are some things you could do in the classroom that encourages ELL students and kind of helps your classroom environment? Because I know something that we've learned about in our classes
Mm-hmm.
is whenever students are frustrated, they act out sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you do have that more with ELL students.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see that in your ELL students sometimes through their frustration?
I'm thinking about the 5 identified ones that I have this year. And I would say I'm not seeing acting out behavior issues that are due to their second language difficulties, but something that we do is show and tell. We use the hover cam a lot, so that they're not just hearing womp, 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 womp.
Yeah.
They're seeing what they're expected to do, and if they're watching what they're expected to do, it's easier for them to understand, because they're seeing it and hearing it.
Yeah.
And,
so they're not just being told exactly what they need to do, and that way it helps them.
Yep.
Well, thank you for letting me interview you today.
That's it. That was so easy.